Hi, I'm Matthew Patrick Shaw. I'm an assistant professor of law here at Vanderbilt Law School. I'm also an assistant professor of public policy and education at Peabody College. I teach constitutional law, education law, and race in the law courses here. My big project is trying to understand rights to education, which is not the same as rights in education, although there is some overlap. My first article published by the University of Chicago Law Review was entitled A Public Right to Education. And there I make a big claim that in an age where we don't entirely believe that substantive due process is going to survive, that there is still a major place for substantive due process when it comes to rights to property interests. And when you look at education, it kind of acts like a property interest. And that's the first thesis in this paper, but the broader project is to establish it as a right that belongs to the public, to everybody who lives here, irrespective of citizenship status, just because they happen to be present in the United States and a member of the public. So that's taking me to a lot of places. I'm looking at the so-called anti-critical race theory bills and trying to understand what it is we actually are doing. Is it pedagogy or is it curriculum? I'm looking at the rights of trans students to be full participants in the educational environment. And as much as I'm talking about these very discrete things, I'm also talking about what our values are, why we have public education, why we have education broadly speaking, and what that does for us as people here in the United States of America, how that sets the next generation up for success, and why those opportunities need to be made available to everyone. I teach constitutional law, which is the structure of government. So think about everything from federalism, separation of powers, the Commerce Clause, and why that helps us to understand what the various branches of federal government can do and what the federal government can do relative to the state government. That's really helpful as a platform to then understand where rights come in constitutional law too. More locally, I also teach education law, which brings constitutional law concepts in, but also administrative law, some torts, some contracts to the education ecosystem. How does law actually create the educational experience? How does law limit access in certain ways? How does law promote certain types of teaching and learning? And finally, I teach a seminar, Race in the Law, which looks at how race is experienced everywhere, from anything including contracts to antitrust, to criminal law, to housing, to even the composition of the students sitting in the seminar classroom. And I think across all of those courses, students are able to understand, either through Socratic method or through writing, what law really means for everyday people who knowingly or unknowingly are affected by the decisions that are made in state houses, in Congress, and in courtrooms and administrative bureaus across the country.